Hello and welcome to the TechGeek podcast, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Sukriti Aduvanshi, and I'm here with an episode that talks about what the future of cloud computing looks like. The demand for low latency, real time data processing, and automated decision making solutions is increasing exponentially. To stay competitive, industries are widely adopting IoT based technologies and are becoming more oriented to edge. But what is edge computing and how it is actually reshaping the IT world? I'm going to talk about this with Nishit Pathak, who is the global lead architecture and startup ecosystem for cloud and ITO from DSC Technology. Welcome to the show, Nishit. I am happy to have you here with me today.
Sukriti, very excited to be here. We are honestly going to talk a lot about one of the topic which is close to my heart, which is edge computing and cloud computing. So very excited to share my thought to you and the rest of the people. Glad to be here.
Thanks, Nishit. And I'm also equally excited to ask the questions that I have for you and to know more about what the future looks like. So let's quickly get started. According to market studies, Nishit, the global edge computing market is expected to reach 15.7 billion US dollars by 2025. At a CAGR, growth rate that we talk of is which will be 34.1%. Because more and more companies are adopting cloud-like agility, innovation, and flexibility into their edge computing infrastructure. This shift will not only enhance productivity and scalability, but will also reshape the IT world. Now, help me understand how is edge computing transforming and reshaping India's IT and business computing landscape?
So to be honest, right, if you look on edge computing, presently edge computing is redefining the industry automation and industry 5.0. The entire paradigm of making the edge intelligent has actually been changed over the years. Is made intelligent using the rules engine through IoT gateways. Now today, we are seeing where the AI accelerators are helping in deploying the complex AI models to the edge. This is actually helping in inferencing faster and making the edge computing more proactive. So currently, we are talking about real-time predictive analytics, predictive maintenance of the devices and system. The whole notion of connected system has really started opening a lot of avenue for us. And now we are talking about the data, where the data has been really processed as it gets generated with the AI accelerators and applying AI by bringing the brains into the IoT, which is probably for me is a new approach of doing the edge computing. Now, if you honestly look on the industry sector, there's a tremendous innovation happening both on the hardware and software space on the edge. The market is honestly so big that every company has come into the playground. Now, even most of the companies in hardware spaces have a SKU family of product to it. To be really true, these are really exciting times for both hardware and software companies. And Indian companies are right on the epicenter of this change.
So, Nishit, that was about how the industry is being reshaped. Tell me, how is traditional IT infrastructure decentralized with edge at its core, supplemented by centralized cloud computing?
Now, Shukri, this is fantastic answer and question. And in order to answer this, I really want to go back to the history and pivot you the 3 generation of IoT computing, right? So we have really seen, the first generation of IoT inclusion was when the devices started sending telemetry data to the cloud to store and even process the data in the cloud. So you actually had the advantage of ample storage, inexpensive compute, and using cloud as a medium to connect between the devices. Now, as the customer started streaming the data, they started thinking about issues like data latency. For example, how can they reduce the latency or spillover of the data privacy, or anonymizing the data. And lots of industry like, for example, healthcare industry doesn't want to stream very sensitive confidential data to the cloud as it violated a lot of policies. And customers were really not comfortable moving sensitive data to their devices and sensor to the cloud. Now that is where it came out that the customers came back to the cloud providers, say, hey, what we can do to avoid streaming sensitive data to the cloud? Can we filter it? Can we do something locally to avoid running it to the cloud? And that is where, and there is additional process to it, right? There are a lot of proprietary protocols like Modbus, BACnet, which actually our current cloud does not support. So we really need the intermediaries that can do protocol transitions. Now, this is where the IoT gateway came in, and this is what is called as second generation of IoT. Now, IoT Gateway initially was just based on rule engine, and it was just filtering and routing the data. The need of an hour was, how can we add compute and storage on the IoT Gateway and make it more intelligent? And this is what started knowing as edge computing, where we started making the edge computing more intelligence that is currently mimicking the public cloud.
Right. So, report also suggests, Nishit, that by 2025, 75% of enterprise-generated data will be created and prepared outside a traditional centralized data center or cloud, which, you just recently spoken about. What are some of the game-changing applications of the alliance between edge computing and cloud for 2022 and beyond?
See, if you look on edge computing, right? So edge computing, actually, the stack of the edge computing comprises of a couple of things. So we got, on the one hand, we got IoT sensors and devices, we got compute, we got net storage, but above all, the inclusion of artificial intelligence on board hardware and software front is really a game changer. And it is really opening a lot of interesting avenues, right? So you, as I mentioned, you typically have an AI accelerator, which is now being used to deploy a highly complex deep learning model. So for me, the biggest driver and game changer is the usage of AI accelerator on edge, which is opening up a lot of avenues. Now, if you are looking back, we are actually discussing and solving some of the problems and challenges which seems impossible to resolve a decade back. Almost all the connected system and devices are really the outcomes of are really one of the examples of edge computing and behind. So if you look at connected cars, so connected car for me is nothing but the edge computing on the wheels. Similarly, we will honestly see a lot of vehicles and machines running these edge computing devices. Moreover, we are right now started deploying these edge computing devices into the areas like shipping, mines, or even windmills, where we really don't have a luxury to manage those devices or updating software often. All of these things are getting possible through edge computing. So every industry, if you think of it, is getting poised with new applications with this alliance. For example, I give you another example of healthcare. We are using edge computing to not only filter or anonymize data, but now there are deep learning models that are deployed on the edge, which are taking and helping to impromptu actions to immediately take the actions as and when patient vital changes. On retail industry, right, for other example, we are generating a large amount of data for inventory tracking, sales monitoring, and other business operations. So with edge computing, we can really use this data to analyze business opportunities like forecasting, sales, optimizing supply orders, and running effective campaigns. So to be honest, I just gave you a couple of examples, but there are endless examples for each of the industries. And this is edge computing is really transforming all of these industries by one way or the other.
All right. Now, this is the last one. The convergence of IoT and 5G technologies with edge computing is expected to impact various industries significantly. And, we also see a lot of reports talking about the impact and the efficiency. What does the future look like for the IT industry with the emergence of these technology? And what new job roles will arise as a result of this transformation?
Fantastic question again, right? So now if you look on it, some of the data points you already mentioned, and one of the stuff that I remember about is from one of the research by World Economic Forum, which is saying that by 2025, there is around 463 exabytes of data that will be created each day globally. Now, this data volume will continue to increase as we move towards 5G landscape and connected devices, which will subsequently lead to adoption of hyperscale growth of the cloud networks. So as the cloud networks have their own challenges, which actually led to the emergence of edge computing, the paradigms is getting started about and resolving some of the challenges that we have never seen. For me, the future of IT really looks like very promising. Now, with this emergence of new technology, it is really creating the host of opportunity in IT industry, right? It is also increases the surface area on the cloud network architecture for potential attacks, increasing the need of cybersecurity. So, for example, cybersecurity for me is no longer a mere business risk. It has actually become a business imperative. Now, to battle the new and emerging threats, company has been pushed to evolve and rethink their business strategy and security procedures. So these are some of the results that are actually coming out. And as a result, we will see really a different demand in the skill force, specialized in certain areas like cyber security, IoT spectrum, network, programming skills like Python, and also some of the edge-based computing devices. Of course, nothing to say that in the cloud and edge computing has become a new normal now.
Thanks, Nishit. I think those were some wonderful insights you've shared with us, and I'm sure the audience had a great time listening to you. So, thank you so much for filling us with these insights.
My pleasure, Shakriti. Thank you so much for having me. I hope your audience would get some takeaways. Personally, this is really very exciting times for entire dev fraternity, software and hardware companies, and for some of the technology geeks like me. So edge computing for me, I know, is really faster. So very happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me on board.
Thanks, Ashit. And indeed, this is a great time. And with thoughts pouring in from an expert like you, I'm sure the audience would consider them and make use of their, of these insights to flourish in their careers further. Audience, it's a wrap from our end. Thank you so much for tuning in. Stay tuned to TechGeek for all the latest tech updates and happenings. This is your host signing off.